I'm Manny.
I'm Noah.
This is Devin.
And this is No Such Thing, the show where we settle our dumb arguments and yours by actually doing the research. On today's episode, why do some elderly people seem to age way better than other elderly people? We'll talk to one of the authors of a groundbreaking new study on so-called Super-Agers, and then we'll actually talk to one of them.
There's no such thing. No such thing. No such thing. No such thing. No such thing.
All right, fellas, I want to start this episode with a question, an intimate question for the boys.
Oh.
Where do you see yourselves at 80 years old? What's going on in your life? And more importantly, how lucid do you think you'll be? How sharp do you think you'll still be?
It's a sad one.
Who's going first? You can think about it so you can paint a picture for us.
Yeah, I'm going to be very lucid at age 80.
And what makes you say that?
I'm doing the work. You know,
Crossword puzzles.
I'm going to still be doing Peloton at age 80. The instructors are going to be in their 90s.
You're on your RBG.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna have the news team coming over to my gym, watching me lift 10-pound weights, being like, "This is incredible."
This 80-year-old podcaster is still doing it.
No, I want to be an 80-year-old who's not working,
Okay.
but active.
Yeah, not employed, but,
Yes.
working your brain out.
Yeah,
You're still reading. You're
exactly going to the gym, still doing. Like I have a great uncle. He's in his 80s, and yeah, he's still very much with it. Like. Very fit. He still travels by himself and lives alone, and but it's because he's always stayed active. He's always been going to the gym. He's always doing stuff. He's always running around, always using his mind. So that is the life I envision for myself in my 80s. Obviously, we cannot predict the future.
And how about Noah?
I mean, of course, I would like that.
Yeah.
What do I see? I don't know, but maybe I won't even have the wherewithal to be sad about it.
Damn.
I mean, let's be honest. Look at the statistics. I mean, I'm thinking about my family. I could see both sides. I mean, I was out in California early this year with my 90-something-year-old uncle.
Wow.
Oh.
And
how's he doing?
great. He's driving.
What?
He goes to the golf club. People are coming up, talking to him. He's talking back. in full sentences, laughing,
He's
telling
responding?
stories from his past.
Yeah.
Wow.
Seems to mostly know who people are.
That's a great life.
In
So-
his 90s. Wow. That's beautiful.
So
How old do you think people think your uncle is without knowing?
voice sounds pretty good, I think. Speed of speech is pretty strong, fair,
Yeah.
Batting above average for that.
Yeah, so I would say low 80s, I think.
Wow.
So I'd say maybe shave
Late
off about 10
70s,
years.
low 80s.
Yeah.
Okay, Devin, your great uncle.
Yeah.
I mean, if I spoke to him on the phone, how old do you think I think he is?
When I talk to him, yeah, he's very much with it. Like, he hasn't changed. Like, it's the sort of thing where he's obviously like my great uncle. So he's like a grandparent age.
Yeah.
So the whole time I've known him, in my mind, he's been quote unquote old. Right.
Yeah.
And he doesn't feel that much older now when I see and talk to him than he did, 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
At least in my mind.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh God, you see Uncle Willie. He used to be like really,
Yeah, like wow, last Thanksgiving he was so different.
Yeah, like he used to like when they had a big thing for his 80th birthday, and he like gave me a hug, almost like knocked me out a little bit. He's still like
wow.
he's got that strength. When
That's
they
impressive.
go to the
All right, so
doctor,
you are going to be on the Peloton.
Oh, yeah.
yourself.
Exactly.
see it
Hopefully it
now.
runs in the family, the youthfulness of the older members of your family. I think you guys have had a slightly different experience than me. Like I know some 80-plus-year-olds just through family friends who are really kind of slow and I'm always fascinated when I do see people who are 80 plus but just all there, completely still witty, sharp. Good memories, like telling stories from their past in a clear way.
Well, to be fair, there are those people in my life too who are not with it and not very mobile and don't seem youthful. I just wouldn't bring them up in this conversation because that's kind of seen as like the norm.
Yes.
At least in my mind.
Yeah,
Of just
yeah.
like, you're old. That's what old people do.
Right.
So like it doesn't stand out as like a thing to talk about.
Yeah, like if someone passed away in their mid to late 70s, for example, that wouldn't be so abnormal. It'd be like,
No.
okay, they've lived
It's
kind of a
sad.
full life. Yeah.
Of course.
It's horrible. But yeah, it's, I always start to do this thing in my head, sadly, when people die, of just sort of like best case scenario, how much longer could they have lived? And I'm like, okay, yeah, once you get to late 70s, it's like, oh, if you would have lived 5-6 more years, that's about the amount of time.
Then you wouldn't have seen the story and been like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
At all. Yeah.
So yeah, once you get, late 70s, early 80s, it's like, it's kind of an expected time for
Yeah.
someone to pass.
Well, for the purposes of this episode, I'm super interested in figuring out what exactly differentiates the 80-plus-year-olds we just were talking about, and people like Noah's uncle and your great uncle, who just seem to be a little bit more advanced for their age cognitively, not advanced age, obviously. And I've been fascinated by this for years now, ever since Noah and I in 2018 went up to Connecticut and interviewed Mr. Maury Povich from The Maury Show.
The GOAT.
I don't have any thoughts of retiring. I like to do it. I think we do some good. I think we bring families together. I know one thing, that when I leave this show, you won't see me on television ever again.
Now, when we interviewed him, that was in 2018. I was shocked at the end of the interview because, we spent the whole day with him. He was, running around playing with his dog. He's being playful with, all of his employees. He's funny, witty. And then at the end of the day, he made this, passing comment, I'm 80 years old, and, this is still... And I was like, 80 years old?
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked by that. Now, that was years ago. Today, Maury is 87. And I just want to play a clip from his new podcast here to just exemplify how sharp the guy is. So this is Maury telling a story to Kathy Griffin.
Current day.
Oh, wow.
Current day,
My two faves.
3 months ago. So he was 87 when this was recorded.
Jimmy and I have had kind of crossed paths. I'll tell you how. When his wife was pregnant,
Yeah.
he and Matt Damon go through their numbers
yeah.
all the time, right?
Very funny.
So he wanted me to come out because he had this skit where Damon was going to claim that he was the father of the kid,
great.
right? And I don't know if I got sick, but I was going to do it, but I couldn't do it.
What?
So I couldn't
Mopo.
do it. I couldn't do it. So they did the skit.
Yeah.
Damon is there.
Yeah.
Jimmy is there, and they have Martin Short playing me.
That is genius. See, now that's why you're a legend.
So, it's not that he's doing advanced calculus, and he's not doing anything insanely impressive, but I do think it's striking that, he's able to recall this story from probably decades ago, tell the story in a clear and concise way. He's being, he's laughing about it. To me, I'm like, okay, 87 years old, at least, certainly when I was growing up, I would have been like, oh, this is someone who's in a home who can barely talk. And I don't know, I just thought, how is this possible?
It's funny because the frame of reference that I have when you played that, I was going through my head of okay, I was thinking of two people. Former President Joseph Biden.
Oh, I'm familiar.
And I was trying to think about...
He might still be the president in his head.
I was thinking about, okay, how would he tell that story? It would take a couple minutes longer.
Yeah.
All the pieces might not be there. Maybe
Yeah.
some wrong names.
And that's a good point. Let me see how old Biden is right now.
Biden's 84, 83.
He's 83.
So 4 years
younger
earlier.
Wow.
than Maury.
And then I thought of somebody else. Donald Trump,
My president.
current president.
Current, former, future.
What is he? 80?
He just turned 80, I think. Or,
Oh, really? I don't think he's
or-
80 yet. Let's see.
79, 80?
79
How old is
maybe.
Donald Trump?
He's 79.
79.
He's about to turn
He's
Oh, yeah,
turning 80 in
July.
June.
June.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry, sir.
250th, Flag Day.
Yeah.
And I think about how he would have that conversation.
Oh, God, yeah.
Definitely more of a tangent.
Yeah.
You a little bit more of where how did this start?
Yeah.
Maybe, a little more oomph in his voice than Joseph.
Yeah, that's interesting because there was a lot of discourse about how much sharper Trump is to Biden, but I think that was largely because it was relative to Biden.
Yes.
Trump is
Yeah.
also still he's
For a
clearly
79-year-old,
he's
not
like
bad.
fine, but still showing signs of I think
Wow.
decline.
I think a lot of it is the timbre of one's voice,
Yeah.
like the speed with which they're saying something,
Yes.
but also just like the sound of it. Like if I didn't see Maury and
Yeah.
just heard that,
right.
you really wouldn't think anything of it,
Yeah.
age-wise.
Yeah.
Versus Biden's like just like a frailer sounding voice, and then Trump is
And much
in the middle
slower.
between them. Even
Yep.
though Trump is still rambling and doing, of course, the weave
Yes.
and
yeah.
incoherent in other ways, but he doesn't sound all that different than 10 years ago. Just
Yeah,
as
that's
far
true.
as the quality of his voice.
Who are some other kind of old folks, maybe 80 plus, or at least getting there, who we feel like are just still
Bernie.
sharp and witty? Yeah,
Bernie
Bernie's a
Sanders.
Like
huge
to be
one.
able to go up and talk like that somewhat. I mean, he talks about the same things for 50 years or whatever, so
Yeah.
that probably helps.
Yeah.
I guess with a lot of these people too, I think like that's what's interesting about the Biden example, where it's like he's obviously been public speaking for so long. Like when Maury was playing, I was like, okay, well, like it's probably, one of my theories is like, okay, he still is working. Obviously, he has an active
Yep.
lifestyle where he's talking to people and interacting and doing, he's being stimulated
Yeah.
and talking. So I'm sure that helps just like keep those muscles moving, like
Yeah.
muscles in the broadest sense.
Yeah.
The motor skills.
But then it's like, well, Biden and Trump or whoever, any politician obviously is hopefully in a lot of meetings and talking to people all the time and getting all this information. So it just shows there's some element that you probably can't control.
Yeah. Yeah, like my kind of hypothesis about Bernie, I do think if you are so like passionate about, some area of politics or anything really, that's probably going to drive you to go a little bit further than your peers. I think Biden, obviously much older seeming than everyone else. He had the unlucky, like very public malfunctioning that we saw. And that's probably coloring our perception a little bit, because I remember all of his staffers coming out and being like, we know that this looked really bad, but trust me, like we talk to him every day and it's fine. That's obviously really hard to sell to the public after watching that debate.
Yeah.
But
I also think Biden's issue is the stutter.
Well, yeah.
And then obviously, I think for a while he had a better handle of it, and I think it's gotten worse as he's gotten older. So I think that's
definitely a piece of
part of it. Because a lot of what we're talking about is just like talking, right?
Yeah.
Biden was riding a bike and stuff. Trump plays golf, but like I would think that Biden is more athletic than Trump is, just as someone who does
for
not
sure.
actually see these people moving outside of in the public eye. So yeah, you hear about older people who retire who kind of deteriorate afterwards because they're kind of alone, they're isolated, they don't have sort of like a thing that they are driving to do every day. But I also feel like it could go in the other direction, right? Like obviously being president is a very taxing job.
Right, yeah.
It is
It's an extreme.
We're hearing about it. Biden, they were talking about he had a bedtime that he couldn't do events after a certain time. And even with Trump, there's some conversations about like he doesn't have the stamina that he had before.
Yeah.
So I do wonder too with some of these older politicians if the job, if maybe they're doing a bit too much and what effect that can have on somebody's body. There's probably a nice area where you have a little bit of purpose and you're still doing stuff, but you're obviously not as active as you were when you were 50.
Yeah, I think we've all seen the famous before and after photo of Obama before his 2 terms,
Yeah.
and just how he looked like he ages like 25 years.
Have you seen Obama recently? He looks real good now.
Yeah,
I
he
saw
left
him with
office.
Zoran.
Yeah, he's aging backwards
Listen,
now.
If you're just a Netflix producer,
Ooh,
treats you well.
looking good.
My next example is, he's not really a politician, although he's been having to dip into it recently, is Anthony Fauci.
Oh,
Oh, he's a
so-
politician already.
he's up there though.
He's 80. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Because my man, he
yeah.
had to do a lot of hits on TV, and he's not, especially during the time that
That'll stress you out.
Imagine you have to go up there and give guidance, and your boss is telling people the complete opposite of what you're saying, and you
Yeah.
have to be up there and be kind of clear and concise. How old is Fauci?
He is 85.
Wow.
Just in case you don't know, during the Trump administration, Anthony Fauci was the chief medical advisor to the president.
During the Biden administration, too, wasn't
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But prior to that, he was the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases from 1984 to 2022.
Yeah, he was around for a while. He was
Yeah.
around during the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
So he's been in public health for a while.
So he's 85, or he's 84 years old from the clip that I'm about to play. But just to set it up, there's a Republican who's confronting him about, according to her, he tried to downplay the lab leak theory and dismiss it as a conspiracy theory. And this is her question to him.
I just want to clarify for the record, because today you testified that you did not suppress the lab leak theory, yet in the past you have said, quote, it is a distortion of reality, unquote. You've said, quote, I've heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, they're just conspiracy theories. That's what you told the American people. And so would you like to clarify what science were you following then versus now?
Yeah, no, I've also been very, very clear and said multiple times that I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory. What is conspiracy is the kind of distortions of that particular subject, like it was a lab leak and I was parachuted into the CIA like Jason Bourne and told the CIA that they should really not be talking about a lab leak.
Thank you.
That's the conspiracy.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, so he's 84 when that clip was recorded, and obviously he's able to combat like a flawed premise. He's joking about it as well at the same time.
Yeah, bringing in Jason Bourne.
Yeah,
some pop culture references.
And I don't know.
In a newer pop culture reference, he didn't say some old shit.
He didn't say some
like
shit
Chuck Schumer style.
Yeah,
where it's
exactly.
Like
It's like, what is this reference?
some like newspaper cartoon from the 20s. He's like, oh, like Pogo used to say.
So yeah, I want to figure out like what it is exactly that differentiates the Faucis, the Moris from the Bidens and from other people we know in our lives who are 80 plus and are, not nearly as cognitively quick. So it turns out, guys, that there is a new groundbreaking study that actually does dive into the differences between some of these octogenarians who are all there, sharp, witty, ready to go, and some of the ones who are just aging regularly or, maybe slower than regular.
What term you just used there?
Octogenarians. It means people who in
Part
their
octopus.
80s.
Individuals.
The Octomom.
People in their 80s. Octogenarian.
But before we get into that study, got a pop quiz.
Oh, here we go.
Noah, I'm about to give you 10 words. And I just want you to simply say them back to me after I'm done reading them.
This is the Trump IQ quiz he always talks about. Elephant, dog, horse.
Hold on, don't add words to my brain right now.
This is a test they use to determine the memory capabilities of anyone really, but mostly people in their, in their advanced age. It's called the Ray's Auditory Verbal Learning Task.
Okay. So he needs to say
I just
all the
repeat them
words
back.
and in the same order.
No, not in the same order.
I just need to get them back.
Get them,
Okay.
That's
get them
easier
correctly,
then.
yeah.
Let's see.
Okay.
All right. Ring, cloud, building, coffee, notebook, brick, sand, tissue, chair, jeans.
Ring. Coffee. Notebook. Building. Jeans. Coffee. I already said that.
Say coffee.
I'm done now.
All right, you got 5.
I got nervous.
This will come into play later in the
Yeah.
episode. But no, we
Okay.
got
I'm
5
cooked.
out of the 10. After the break, we're going to dive into this study to see what differentiates 80-year-olds who are sharp, witty, and put together, and the ones who are not. All right, we are back. I'm Manny.
I'm Noah.
Devin.
And we're about to dive into a study that just came out recently that helps determine why some octogenarians are much more advanced than their peers. So first, I'll just have one of the authors of the study introduce himself.
I'm Changiz Geula. I'm a faculty at the Northwestern University Medical School at the Mesulam Center for Cognitive Neurology and Alzheimer's Disease.
Dr. Geula is one of the authors on a study called Human Hippocampal Neurogenesis in Adulthood. aging, and Alzheimer's disease. And this study was a part of a program at Northwestern where they've been studying this thing for over 25 years. And they have a term for people in their 80s and above who seem to have advanced memory capabilities. And they're called Super-Agers, okay? Which is a great name. The first thing I asked Dr. Geula was, what is it exactly that differentiates a super-ager from someone else their age? Because I thought it was about, sharpness, clarity, like the ability to kind of bounce back and forth in a conversation. But he said it really boils down to their memory.
About 25 years ago, we started a study that we call cognitive super-aging study. So super-agers, we defined as individuals who are 80 years or older, but their memory capacity is equal to or often much better than individuals who are 20, 30 years younger. So these individuals, we all know individuals in our lives who are very old but very sharp, right? They write books, they are artists, they are professors, they run companies. So these individuals, obviously, generally, we consider to be superior in cognitive abilities, but ours is very specific definition, over 80, and having memory capacity that is for much younger, normal individuals. And we wanted to study these individuals because it's very important to understand what helps them to preserve their memory, what helps them to preserve their cognitive abilities. Because during normal aging, all of us are losing cognition after age 30 to a certain extent. It's normal because everybody does it, right? But these individuals have preserved it, and then those who have dementia have great memory problems, particularly Alzheimer's disease. If we find out what factors are helping these individuals preserve memory, then maybe we can help those who are normal and maybe even demented individuals. So this was the impetus of the study. Now, nerve cells, unlike most other cells in the body, do not reproduce themselves after middle childhood or adolescence, meaning that we are born with a certain number of neurons, nerve cells, particularly those in the brain, and they remain with us throughout our life. And that makes sense if you can imagine, when we form memories, for example, there should be a change in the neuron that encodes that memory. So if that neuron is split or lost, then we can't preserve our memory. So the reason we preserve our personality, our emotions, our memory is because neurons don't divide. Now, there are exceptions to this in the brain. There are two areas, but the more important one is the hippocampus that we talked about. In the hippocampus, there's a region where new neurons are being born. And that is actually the impetus for this study. Hippocampus is the seat of memory. Super-agers have superior memory. So we wanted to see if are there actually neurons that are being generated that may explain in part why these individuals are able to preserve memory to old age. So that's really where all of this fits together.
So the first thing that surprised me about what he just said there is that our cognitive abilities start to decline after 30, age 30. I felt like that was so young for things to start declining. But then I think about my life and it does kind of make sense.
Yeah.
I'm much more forgetful than I was even 4 years ago when I was 30.
If you asked me to repeat those 10 words 3-4 years ago, I'd be giving you 12 words back. Good
words
ones.
you haven't even thought of yet.
Forget those words. I'll give you some better ones. So this study, just to be clear, found that there's a small population of people over 80 years old who do generate new neurons in the hippocampus. And that population has been named by the scientists as super-agers, people in their 80s who have the same memory capabilities as people in their 50s and 60s.
I didn't realize how much younger these people's minds were, right?
Yeah.
They were saying 20, 30 years younger than someone their age on average. I was thinking, hey, someone in their 80s, maybe they got the memory of someone in their 70s.
Yeah, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Someone 50 versus someone 80.
Yes, a 50-year-old having, an 80-year-old having the brain capacity or memory of a 50-year-old.
It's nuts. I mean,
That's a huge difference.
Because then think about, Noah, you mentioned earlier, if you had just listened to the Maury clip that I played earlier instead of also watching it, you might think he was way younger. And he's 87. If he's 30 years younger, do you think that sounds like a 57-year-old talking?
I think largely, yeah. I think so. And maybe that speaks to his longevity as a host. But like, really though, I don't think I would have. If I heard them right back to back, I'd probably be like, okay, I think this is the newer one or the older one. But I don't think I would be like, this is a guy in his late 80s.
Yeah, the only thing that would tip me off, I guess, is just the raspiness of his voice.
Exactly, but not
if it was
the actual...
the same exact kind of cadence and everything, but a stronger voice. Yeah, you would think, wow, this guy's relatively young. All right, so I was curious about how exactly Dr. Geula identified super-agers, beyond their very narrow definition. For example, we know that Dr. Anthony Fauci and Maury are in their 80s and they seem to be very sharp, but like, what is actually the next step to confirm whether that person is officially a super-ager?
First of all, we recruit, right? This is a formal study. And I must mention that many families think that an individual is a super-ager, and they refer them to us. And then when we test, we see that of those that supposedly are very superior, only 1% or 2%, at most 10%, depending on the cohort, really fit our definition. So again, we require individuals to be above age 80. Then we administer a test of what is called episodic memory of everyday events and things. And it is a very hard test, actually. It has 15 items, 15 words. They are read to them, and they have to immediately recall the 15 words. So that's one test. And then we wait for half an hour or so, and they have to remember them again. And normal individuals who are in their 80s maybe can remember 5 or 6. Some of our super-agers can remember all 15 even after that 20-minute period. Now, we have many tests of cognitive abilities. This is only one test, which is a requirement for us that the score on that test be the one for much younger individuals. But for other tests of cognition, we require them to be normal because we want to define super-agers in relation to memory. But often they are also doing better in other cognitive tests. So they go through a cognitive test battery, then we administer imaging. You've heard of magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, so that we can look at their brain. During aging, brain volume is gradually lost, becomes less and less. Not significantly, that's dementia, but in normal aging, there is loss. We have found, for example, that in super-agers, there is no shrinkage. If anything, some parts of the brain are thicker even than individuals who are younger. And then we also draw blood to extract DNA, to do genetic tests. We draw blood to do other markers that we can follow. So it's a very comprehensive, and they are individuals who agree to repeated testing, right? Every year and a half. So this is a longitudinal study. We can even see if there are any changes as they get older.
Okay, so as you heard, one of the tests they administer to the octogenarians is the memory test that I gave to Noah a short time ago. And he was saying people in their 80s can sometimes get 4 or 5 of the, he gives them 15 words, I gave you 10. But then he said they wait for a 20-minute period. I don't know if it's quite been 20 minutes, but
it's been about.
Here's round 2.
Let's try it.
The first round, you got 5 out of 10 of the words.
I don't know. I don't think I'll even get those 5. Ring, notebook, coffee, building, jeans.
Yeah.
See, what I was trying to do the first time was like do the initials and go through it, and then I messed it up because then I was like, oh, let me just get these ones at the end. That's where I got jeans from. I don't have any. I definitely can't recall it. I can't add to that list.
All right, on the second
you tied
iteration of this test,
I'm glad I didn't lose anything.
You tied. You got 5 out of 10
in an hour. maybe I'll get 6.
Yeah, you get 6 later.
But I thought it was interesting. He said that the super-agers are often getting all 15 words, even the second time after 20 minutes had passed.
Yeah, they're still
That's
getting a very
incredible.
high
And,
percentage of
we're
it.
picking on Noah here. You also had the disadvantage of not knowing you had to remember it for 20 minutes. I think they know that 20 minutes is going to pass, and they're just like saying it.
But
over and
I
over
want,
minutes.
yeah, I mean, but I'm also like, if I was able to recall it the first time, it seems like it would be easier to then just, I got it. In a
Yeah,
sense,
yeah.
I mean, obviously not knowing anything about how these things work, but
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I just have that. These are the words. Versus like, there's something about immediately trying to parrot it that.
Yeah, you're put
stress
on the
myself
spot.
out.
I thought it was also interesting that people think they know super-agers, and then once they
Yeah.
refer them to the
The
study,
1%.
That's
in
that's
some
actually
cases.
shocking. It's interesting because then it just is a matter of like, well, how does this or how do we think it shows itself versus
Yeah.
the reality of it?
Yep.
Where it might just be, they're a fast talker or whatever, like you were saying,
yeah,
but really there's not maybe as much going on as we think.
yeah, exactly. And it made me think about like all the examples we went through in the intro for this episode. How many of them are actually super-agers? How many of them are developing new neurons in this specific part of the hippocampus versus how many of them are just like, they've been in public life for a long time and they're used to, talking. So at this point, after listening to Dr. Geula, I did have kind of like a, okay, cool, but so what? Like some 80-year-olds can remember things better than other ones. That is interesting because I didn't think that could happen widely. But what does this mean? I mean, are there any other benefits for super-agers when compared to what I'm coining regular agers? I don't think regular agers pops up in this study. They can have that one for free if they want.
Wow. How'd you come up with that? Your mind.
Well, that is my question too, right? Because it's like, okay, whatever. You have a better memory. Are you living longer because of that?
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Or you just are able to list 15 things better than the other person who's going to live the same amount of time.
Right. Should I aspire to be a super-ager,
Yep.
basically?
We do know that with aging, there is some reduction in the processes of neurons, we call them. Neurons have these long thread-like processes, right, that connect them to other neurons or that allow them to receive information from other neurons. We know that these gradually get less and less efficient and they are decreased in extent. Neuronal shrinkage. Neurons shrink a little bit, and that may describe why the volume of the brain is a little less as we age. So whatever is contributing to disintegration, if you will, during normal aging, super-agers resist it. And in some instances, just to give you an example, normal aged individuals have what we call Alzheimer's disease pathology in their brain, but it's very muted. It's just beginning, right? But this is almost a universal phenomenon in normal aged individuals. A little bit of Alzheimer's pathology. Normal individuals invariably have some Alzheimer's pathology. But what is interesting is that there are some super-agers whose brain is just like normal individuals in terms of how much Alzheimer's pathology they have, which means that these individuals are resilient to the results of Alzheimer's pathology, right? The pathology is there, but look at their memory, right?
So not only do super-agers have advanced memory capabilities for their age, but it also turns out to be the case that they are resilient to the Alzheimer's pathology that we all carry with us. Another fact I didn't know, that we all just kind of have Alzheimer's
it's in
pathology,
there.
and it just,
Whether or not how it manifests itself.
yeah, exactly. But very interesting to hear that that they're just so much more resilient. You really do want to be a super-ager in that sense, that you will be able to fight Alzheimer's better once you get to that age.
Yeah, the two things, right? He said there's a lot of super-agers who they have it, but it's not active.
Yes.
And then there are super-agers who have it. It is active, but they're overcoming it and still able to recall things.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
And you think about like octogenarians who do seem slower or normally old, probably not as resilient to Alzheimer's than the super-agers, and that's why maybe some of that is kicking in towards the end of their lives.
Our favorite movie, Osmosis Jones, there should be a sequel called Neuron Jones, and it's a neuron fighting Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that's
in
pretty
an
good.
old guy.
Which comedian should play?
Larry David.
Yes,
Okay,
for
there you
sure.
go. Yeah.
Don't publish this because I'm taking this to Pixar right after this. I'm going to LA.
First flight out.
Yeah.
You're writing it on the plane.
What would you call it?
Neuron Jones.
Neuron
Jones.
Jones. Okay.
You'll remember.
Might
You're
need
gonna
to work
remember
on
that
the
name.
Yeah.
Neuron Jones. Well, he's like his great uncle.
Yeah.
He's Osmosis' great uncle.
Osmosis' great uncle.
And it can be a kind of a crossover. Like
Yeah.
Chris Rock can come back as
Oh, yeah.
so, you know, maybe
Yeah.
maybe Larry David is just an older cop in that precinct.
Yep.
Yeah. There's so many ways
There's
you
a
could
lot of it. Avenues.
integrate these.
Yeah.
Because I know people don't really like Bill Murray anymore. So
What happened to Bill Murray?
I think he was like creepy or something.
Yeah.
He's
Got
not
fired off
around,
the
but
Disease movie.
he's old.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
gotta
call him
be
a
80.
super-ager.
He's not that old though, right?
He's pretty
He's
old.
got to be like Larry.
Yeah.
Younger than Larry, I think.
I'd say a little
He is
older.
75.
Okay, wow, younger.
How old is Larry?
He seems older.
77.
Oh, wow. Now,
Bill
Martha
Murray
Martha
seems
Stewart-
older.
Stewart. Martha Stewart we didn't bring up.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
How old is she?
She's
84.
Yeah.
I haven't heard her. I haven't really listened to her recently.
I know
But
she had
I
a
feel like
documentary.
she talks pretty well. Obviously, looks great.
Just as a frame of reference, like all the people we're talking about, for the most part, were born before World War II. Like that's how long they've been around.
That's
Yeah.
old.
And to be able to just
Yeah,
still
right.
exist in this world
It's
after
a
all
tough
that
world.
time.
Not an easy world.
It's hard for me, as you can tell from my test.
All right, so we know what super-agers are now. We know that they have advanced memory capabilities for their age and that they're even more resilient to Alzheimer's than regular agers. But I was curious whether super-aging just happens, like is it just genetic? Or, is it the case that we can affect whether we are
Yes.
going to be super-agers? Because it sounds like you really want to be a super-ager.
Yeah,
I didn't know the answer to this. I need to hear this.
How you?
No one say anything during this. I'm listening.
Certain things we understand now. Number one, particularly in super-agers, we have found that their social networks are much larger than normal individuals. That's very interesting, right? We said epigenetics, so it may be actually influencing how genes are expressed and contributing to cognition. We also know that isolation in older individuals is bad, right? Because it can actually lead to dementia. So we know now both sides of this story. So having a very strong social network, social connections is good. So that's something we want to promote and make sure ourselves have very consistent connections in society, with our family, with our friends. And then another factor, and this goes beyond the super-aging, the brain requires a very healthy body to function well. So every system of the body influences the brain, right? It's the biggest consumer of energy. So all of our, the heart that is pumping blood for energy, all the systems that have to do with energy production, consumption, the food we eat, they're all going to be very important for brain function. Respiration. Brain is the highest user of oxygen, right? So having a healthy heart. We are now understanding that diseases such as heart disease, such as diabetes, are risk factors for dementia, right? So if there is a systemic disease or a problem, helping it and keeping it in check by, not skipping medications, which is very often what individuals do, but really keeping it healthy at the normal level is going to be very important for the brain. So that's why exercise is important, because of the respiration and our heartbeat being healthier, if you will. There is one other factor that we know in elderly is very important for cognitive function, and that is remaining mentally active. Super-agers continue to do things up to the very time they die. They're mentally continuously active. So it's very important, particularly in the Western societies where, we work and then we look forward to retirement to do nothing. Not very healthy, both physically as well as mentally. So keeping mentally active, however that can happen. Reading as much as we can, engaging in problem solving, and of course, many elderly do volunteer work that requires them to be mentally active. Those are all very important activities and help to keep us mentally sharp into old age.
So we probably could have guessed that like trying to be as healthy as possible throughout your life is going to extend your lifespan. But I was interested to hear about like the social network, because I think there's a natural inclination to, when you get older, you kind of shrink the size of your friend group, for example. I mean, we have that even in our 30s where like
no new friends.
it's just like there's the tolerance for including more new people in your life, I think, shrinks over time.
It's also just harder.
Yeah.
It's all exactly. It's more difficult to maintain that size of the group. But good to know that like that is one of the kind of common denominators with Super-Agers. They still have not only just big social networks, but also I think it's more about like how strong those relationships are.
Yeah.
Maybe actually having a giant social network where you barely you know really interact with people doesn't count.
So what are the three? We got, like you said, social network, active social network, families, friends, relationships, not being isolated. We got just fitness.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, this is
the health of the heart.
Another part of Neuron Jones, my film. The whole body needs to be working in concert.
Yes.
The heart,
Yep.
hugely important.
Yeah.
I think the heart will be. Oh, I guess it'll be a different person's body. Is it still Bill Murray's body?
It's a body.
Okay.
Anybody? We're still deciding.
A human bodies, yeah. We're in casting.
Because the heart, I think, does make an appearance in Osmosis Jones.
Well, they'll come back.
Yeah.
So we'll need them for that.
Bill, we need your heart. Yeah.
And then the third is just keeping your mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep
Just
your mind
active.
right.
Right? So problem solving, you talk about
Gaming.
old people doing crosswords.
Play Halo.
Yes.
Yeah. Crossword, Sudoku.
Problem solving, which is, I think, like he was talking about, people thinking about retiring, but you're leaving the workplace. In the workplace, you're doing a lot more reading, uses your brain a lot more problem solving.
Yeah.
If you go from that to doing absolutely
Sitting
nothing.
at home. Yeah.
Yes.
Watching TV.
Yep.
If your goal is to, remain as cognitively present as possible into your advanced years, the thing about getting old and like moving to a farm or whatever and just like being by
Isolating
yourself and
yourself.
isolating is not going to help in that endeavor. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, we all three of us have decently sized networks.
Yeah,
so
it's
we're
early,
doing
though.
well in there.
It's
I try to
early.
see people.
We just
and
got to
talk
make sure
people.
they don't shrink.
It's early.
It is early.
If we're lucky, we got we got to hold on to this for 50 years.
Yeah.
So in 50 years, we're probably, if we want to stay alive, we got to do this podcast still. We still got to be coming down here.
Yeah. Might be our only hope. That or have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And be nice to them. So they,
Each
they
new
stick
kid
around.
you have increases the size of your social network. That's a
hopefully.
good hack.
Hopefully.
If you are a good parent.
Yeah. Or it could go the other way.
Yep.
All right, so by now we're very familiar with the concept of a super-ager. But I don't think it would be right to end this episode unless we actually talked to a super-ager. Someone who was confirmed to be a super-ager by participating in that Northwestern study. So, to close this episode out, we'll be speaking to 91-year-old Ralph Raybach. But first, we've got to pay some bills. Welcome back to No Such Thing. This is Manny, and for the last 40-odd minutes, we've been learning what a super-ager is and why we should all strive to be one. What you're about to hear, though, is my conversation with an actual super-ager. I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Ralph Raybach. I was born in 1934 and I am 91 years old, almost 92 in July. On a daily basis, after I wake up, I go over to my computer or my phone and I see if I've got any messages or any emails. Then make sure with my calendar what's going on today because I have everything written by hand in a calendar that I keep meticulously. I get ready for breakfast. I should say that my wife has some physical issues and we have a caregiver in our home, and the caregiver fixes our breakfast. And I'm still driving at age 91. Driving is basically only when taking my wife to doctor's appointments or my own doctor's appointments. When we come back from an appointment, I look at my table that always has a 24 by 30 inch 1,000-piece puzzle going, and I probably put in a few pieces into that. And one second, somebody's at my door.
At this point in my interview with Ralph, someone showed up at his door.
Hello. Hi. We're on the next is the 22nd. I'm on a podcast right now.
It turned out that a fellow super-ager went to Ralph's house for a get-together, but unfortunately, Ralph's friend got the date wrong.
It's not what it used to be. I'm on a podcast.
This interaction struck me because it showed that even super-agers are not immune to cognitive decay. At some point, it comes for everyone.
Anyway, I like to be very careful not to make those kinds of mistakes.
Another thing about Ralph, though, that he thinks contributed to him becoming a super-ager is that he and his family actually fled Nazi Germany.
I am a Holocaust survivor. We came from Germany in 1938 and became part of the Chicago South Side community and started kindergarten in 1939. I had lost my German language and accent right at that time. In the 1970s in Chicago, the Nazi Party was having a march, and we survivors wanted to make sure that our stories were told, because up to that time in America, people weren't really responding to the end of the war and what may have happened during World War II, and the fact that 6 million Jews were murdered and 1.5 million children were killed just because they were Jewish. However, in the 1970s, these Nazi marches really opened our eyes, those of us that had survived, to needing to tell our stories. And so from that particular moment on, in the 1980s, after our Illinois Holocaust Museum was founded, I started telling my story. And that keeps me going.
Finally, I asked Rolf if he had any advice for people who want to become super-agers like him.
Absolutely. First of all, do the right things. Be healthy in what one eats. Be healthy in what one does. Get involved in activities that are meaningful. And the last thing, we luckily got married at age 21. We had children quickly after age 21. And now we have 6 great-grandchildren, to say nothing of 5 grandchildren and husbands and wives, and therefore 10 of those. And so that whole group of 13 keep me active and involved and concerned about all of them. We're celebrating our 70th wedding anniversary next week, and all of those people will be able to be together because they're living close by. So family relationships are another thing. Any or all of those things that I mentioned, if you and others like you decide to do, you'll get there as well.
No.
No Such Thing is a production of Kaleidoscope Content. Our executive producers are Kate Osborne and Mangesh Hatikadur. The show was created by Manny Fidel, Noah Friedman, and Devin Joseph. The theme and credits song are by me, Manny Fidel, and the mixing is done by Steve Bone. Thank you to our guests this week, Dr. Cengiz Geula and Ralph Raybach. You can learn more about Northwestern's study of the Super-Agers at the links in our show notes. Be sure to visit nosuchthing.show to subscribe to our newsletter. And if you have feedback or a question, our email is mannynoahdevin@gmail.com. We will be back.